What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 1 of Truth and Basketball with Coach George Karl and Swipa, and we are so glad to have you. Now, I know. How did this even get started? How did Coach Karl and Swipa even get an opportunity to meet? Well, y'all, I got a chance to interview Coach Karl a few months back. The episode did really well. People loved it. And then you know what? Behind the scenes, Coach Karl and I have been doing a lot of talking, a lot of different conversations. And we decided together that we wanted to launch a new show to talk about real basketball. Coach Karl, number one, how are you doing? And two, can you tell the audience why do you feel like the show Truth in Basketball needs to exist in the first place?
Well, I'm doing great. I mean, the Hall of Fame was great. My family was there. My basketball family was there. It was a great 3 days. And most of the time in my life when I went to my World Series or the Super Bowl or Wimbledon, those moments always come up short. The Hall of Fame didn't come up short for me. It was a special day, a special week. And I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And I'm meeting a lot of great people that have been great basketball mentors of mine. And I think it'll spice up my retirement a little bit. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And but from the standpoint of how this got to work in Truth in Basketball, I don't know, podcast about 3 or 4 years ago got hot. Everybody wanted to try one. And a couple guys, Brett and Mikey, not Brett, and another guy came to me and wanted me to try 12 episodes. I said, let's do it. It evolved into bigger and more. I don't think any of us get rich on it yet, but maybe it'll make a little pocket money, a little gambling money on the golf course. But what I think I do well is I tell stories. And I joke now all the time, I'm a storyteller. All I'm going to do is tell you stories that might relate to something that's going on with the Nuggets or some other team. I think right now there's a lot of the way the world is moving so fast that the wisdom of experience is being negated. I look at some of the NBA staffs, I think they're too young. I look at the Broncos. I think they're too young. I think you got to have an old guy on your bench, and I think you got to have some guys that've been there before, that have gone through it. And I know today's generation is different than my generations, but I've been to most situations that come up in basketball. I've gone through it in some way, and probably many times in some way.
Well, Coach, you already got a chance to touch on it, but you had an enshrinement into the Basketball Hall of Fame recently, and I know that's something that I've heard you talk about a lot, and I've heard people ask you about this, but I think the cool thing is, as somebody who, again, I've shared this with you before, but for the audience that may not have heard, I have had a chance to watch you, Coach Karl, since the 1990s. And I was a fan of those supersonic teams. I remember Gary Payton. I was a huge Sean Kemp fan when I was younger. And then you got a chance to come and coach the Denver Nuggets. And, Coach Karl, you saw me on Twitter the other day. I fully believe that 2009 team you had with Chauncey Billups and Carmelo Anthony, Kenyon Martin, and the rest of the roster that you had, I really believe that was another championship core you had. Now, again, you played against Kobe and Powell and Phil Jackson and them, and so that was a great series. But my early basketball development came a lot from watching you and watching what you were doing on the basketball court. So to say that, I'm honored that we get an opportunity to do this, it's an understatement. And on top of that, Coach, you being in the Hall of Fame is something that all of Denver, literally the city of Denver, has been waiting on for years. So, Coach, congratulations for me, and I know congratulations from the rest of the Denver community as well.
Well, Denver's probably my favorite stop. Seattle and Denver are the two places I probably enjoyed the most. Milwaukee's near that, but Seattle getting to the finals was cool. And then, coming here and, what I said in the speech was, every team I've ever coached had a losing record when I went to that team. And, the turned around is, I think everybody remembers we went 32-8 the first 40 games we played in Denver here. That was an amazing run. It didn't carry over into the playoffs, even though I thought we played the Spurs pretty well. My time in Denver has been precious. I raised a girl here that's now in college, and I think she loves Denver. I think Denver's going to be a part of my life the rest of my life.
That's amazing, Coach. And, Coach, there's something I got to ask you about. So I saw on Twitter when we were talking about this the other day, people were talking about the Western Conference Final versus the LA Lakers. And so I think a lot of people have had questions even about that series. So, Coach, for you, if you could even say quickly, you don't have to be too long about it, when we played in that series in 2009, what do you think maybe was the thing that caused the series to end the way it did, where the Lakers ended up winning in 6? Is there anything on your mind that you particularly remember about that series that maybe you would change, or the things that just happened over the course of that series that might have changed the outcome?
I think the thing that lingers with me was there were a lot of close games. In fact, in the games that were won by a big number, we won those games. My thoughts go back to our execution in the last couple minutes of the game. LA did it better than we did. Our offense faltered. There were probably a couple mistakes I made from the standpoint. The one game when Anthony Carter turned the ball over on the sideline out of bounds, Kenyon was always the guy taking it out. He had fouled out in that game. And maybe I should have made a better choice. But Lamar Odom did a hell of a job on the ball pressure. And they scored better than we did down the stretch, and we made so many mistakes down the stretch.
Right. Coach, I think one of the things that even when I reflect on somebody like Carmelo Anthony and his career, Coach, I think that my estimation, I think you actually were able to get the most from an all-around basketball standpoint, Carmelo as a scorer, as a defender even, but even just as a facilitator. I think that might have been the very best that he got an opportunity to play, even in the 2012-13 year when he played for Mike Woodson and they ended up going to the second round. I think that was probably the best version that we saw. What do you think it was about maybe that year or that time, or maybe even what you did as a coach that year, that allowed for him to flourish in the way that he did?
Well, I think I wanted Melo to be more of a complete player. And Melo kind of had a pushback about, I think the best players in the game make people better. And the best players in the game elevate other players to be better within the team. And I thought Melo was too offensive oriented. Melo would be on my top 5 rebounders of all time. I mean, the guy is an unbelievable rebounder, a really, really good rebounder. He's also a very, very good passer. And he knows defense. He just doesn't play it all the time. And so I was pushing him all the time to be more balanced and more involved in being, a great player, just not a great offensive player, but a great basketball player. And, he never rejected that. But I don't think he ever really committed to that either. So we were in that state of compromise. And when you're trying to win a championship, compromise doesn't work. When you're trying to win a championship, it's got to be total commitment. And it's got to be by everybody on the team. And I think because of, my belief, championship teams are based on defense and passing the basketball and making offense powerful because you play together. The weakness of our basketball team would go up and down. Sometimes we played weak basketball. Sometimes we played isolation basketball. And I did that a lot to make Melo happy. But I'm not sure Melo gave us a lot back sometimes. But, in the same way, Melo won a lot of games here for us. a lot of games. And I've never been a negative guy on Melo, other than I wanted more from him. And that's on me a little bit. It's my job to get it out of him. And I'm not saying I was a failure, because I think most people would say what you're saying, that Melo had his best years here in Denver. But in the same sense, I still think he had more to give, and we never got out of him.
All right. So, Coach, and then this all relates even to the Hall of Fame enshrinement. If you had to pick, maybe it could be one or two, your favorite team in terms of the year, just the chemistry, the roster, everything. Do you have a favorite year that sticks out for you that you got a chance to coach? And it could have been a really successful season where you made the final, or a team that didn't even make the playoffs. Is there a year in particular that stands out for maybe your favorite as a coach?
Well, making the finals is probably the best one. I mean, people forget that we swept the Houston Rockets, who won the championship the year before. And we played Utah, a hell of a playoff series, a 7-game series. And then, we lost to Michael. And what's funny is we lost that series a lot because of our travel. We lost game 3 because we didn't get to bed till 6 o'clock in the morning. On Friday, we played Friday in Chicago, flew home that night, hit a snowstorm in Billings, had to stop. And then we got home like at 6 in the morning, had to practice the next day. Or whatever, load management blew us all out. We were all in trouble. We were tired. We played awful in game 3. We got the momentum going in game 4. I think if we got that momentum going in game 3, it might have been a 7-game series.
So, Coach, for you then, because, I hear you talk a lot about, especially role players, and you even said that you think a championship team is based on defense and passing, which I think about the Golden State Warriors when I hear that. Great defensive team, high-level passing, high assist percentage. Even the Phoenix Suns 2 years ago when they went to the finals against the Milwaukee Bucks, just swarming defense. And, again, always super connected on offense. The Milwaukee Bucks also fall in that category. The LA teams that you got a chance to face. Even the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen-led Chicago Bulls. So why do you think it is that NBA teams sometimes, if that's the case and that's what it takes to win a championship, why do you think some NBA teams don't prioritize maybe defense and even passing the way that they should, if those are the things that make up championship rosters?
Well, the pendulum of how the game is emphasized changes. In the 80s and 90s, we had too many guys playing defense and not enough guys playing offense. It swung a little bit after the Pistons, who were a great defensive team, won a couple championships. But towards the late 2009, 2008, and until now, the game has swung back to being a very offensive-oriented basketball game. That will swing back somewhat. I thought last year the game got more defensive-minded. I thought the game got more physical. I thought referees let the players play a little bit more last year. But every year you make adjustments. Every year you got to evolve into being a better basketball team. And when you have a bad year or an injury year, even though you don't play well, you still got to learn. You still got to grow. One of the things I worry about Denver is with Porter and Murray not playing last year, we're going to talk about what it's going to be great to have them back. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what have we lost. Right. Have we lost a year of development? Have we lost a year of continuity? Have we lost a year of connection? And so, and all these things we can talk about. We're in summer talk. And then we've not played a game yet. And everybody has their thoughts and their opinions. But nobody really knows.
Right. So, Coach, if we're swinging back into that, then, obviously we have seen 3 games now of the NBA preseason for the Denver Nuggets. We had a chance to watch them against the Thunder, the Bulls, and then at the time of the recording of this episode, we got a chance to see them last night versus the Phoenix Suns. Now they're 1-2. Coach Michael Malone came out in the media day and said that his goal is to help this team become a top 5 defense. Now, they haven't yet shown a consistency to be able to do that, especially in the first 2 games. They did better in the 3rd game versus the Phoenix Suns. So if you had to give, just from the games that you've seen so far, maybe your overall impressions of the Denver Nuggets thus far in the preseason, what are some of the things that come to mind?
I like their additions. I haven't seen enough of Murray or Porter to make an opinion. I'm a little nervous on Porter. I'm just going to say I've always been a little nervous on Porter. I mean, the rumblings around the NBA are saying the same things I'm seeing. He looks like he's an injury guy. He hasn't gotten his confidence back yet. He's a really talented kid. And unfortunately, I think we're still in the stage of he's potentially a great player. He's still in that stage of potential. He has not evolved into I'm not sure what consistency is. But great players have a way of being consistent. And I think Porter goes up and down too much, not only in his play, but sometimes in the game, quarter to quarter.
Right.
He'll have a great quarter, and then I can't find him the rest of the game. Or he'll have a bad game, and then he'll have a great 4th quarter. So, I think can he become more consistent with his talent and his contribution? But, it's great having a guy like Jokic. Who Jokic is going to make whoever plays, they're going to make him into a good team. Now, they don't want to be a good team anymore. That's what they've been for 5 years. They've been a good team. How did they become a championship team? And I think the injuries and the distractions of not having a lot of success in the playoffs. I know the bubble. You don't argue the bubble's important. I just want to see them be more of an NBA playoff team.
Right.
And those are little things that I try to talk about that the analytics don't feel as much as I do. It's kind of like everybody's picking the Clippers right now to win it. And I go, the only reason we're picking the Clippers is Kawhi.
Right.
That's the only reason. And he's been injury prone for 2 years. And don't get me wrong, he's one of my favorite players in the game. But the other guys out there, they've had more failure and some bad failure in the playoffs than anybody else.
Right.
I'm sure they're going to have a great regular season. I'm sure they're going to win a hell of a lot of games. But I still think Golden State has a little bit of an advantage because of they know how to win when the going gets tough.
Right. So, to that point, Coach, I'm not sure if you got a chance to see what happened with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. Now, I have 2 questions for you based off this. So, when I imagine you've seen fights, obviously, either in the locker room or on the court. But my questions are, the way that it's being communicated from the Warriors players so far is that they were very surprised to see the video of what happened with the altercation. There seems to be a collective disappointment with Draymond in terms of his decision making and why he did that. And especially, even if Jordan was talking, they just felt like the punch didn't justify what was taking place. And then Steve Kerr, when asked about it, now he brought up the Chicago Bulls experience. Obviously, Steve Kerr himself was punched by Michael Jordan. But again, Coach, that was Michael Jordan, and that's Steve Kerr. So in this instance, do you think that that kind of incident between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole will have any kind of negative effect on the Golden State Warriors this season?
I have both. I'm going to jump from one side of the fence to the other. I have both feelings. I have a tremendous respect for their championship pedigree. They are good. When it gets tough, they have figured it out. And Steph is a better player than I ever thought he'd be. And he's a winner. And and I really believe he plays to win. He plays for nothing but to win. But then on the same sense, what he did, as you said, when I heard about it, I said, well, it's just probably a training camp fight. It wasn't a training camp fight. It was a ugly, below the line abuse. I mean, and, they can talk all they want, but somehow, some way, Poole and Green got to get together and forget about it. And I don't know if that's capable in 1 year. It might be capable over 2 or 3 years, but I just think that because every city they go into, guess what they're going to talk about? They're going to talk about the punch. And that will last at least 30 games into the season. And that negative energy just grows and it festers.
Wow.
And because of that, I'm a little pessimistic about them becoming that championship pedigree. And I don't know if it's good right now that Poole and Green are both on the last year of their deals. I think they're both on the last year of their deals.
They are. Yeah, so Draymond has basically 2 years left, but he wants a new contract. And Poole, he's up for a deal. Well,
the energy of new contracts are negative. Right. The energy in the locker room when you have contract talk all over your locker room, it becomes negative energy. And I'm kind of a believer that a lot of times the great teams are defeated from within as much as they're defeated from someone else in the league.
Wow. So, and here's the thing, Coach. I have a different kind of experience. I played college football. I've been in NFL locker rooms. Coach, I have been in fights on practice fields before over stuff. But again, that was stuff that was happening like in the play, like you're holding, we're arguing about something, you're getting too physical after the whistle and it blows up. But Coach, I have not in my experience seen where we're in practice and again, we have helmets on, but even in this instance, if we're in a locker room, I have not seen one of my teammates cold cock another teammate that did not seem to be in position to fight. And Coach, again, with how I saw it, I really am struggling to think how you can just overcome one of your 3 most important players on your roster and your defensive anchor punching one of your young studs, even if you feel like he was being too cocky, and then just getting over it, Coach. Again, there's been a lot of back and forth, especially on social media about the event, but I'm kind of like you, Coach, where I do think that this has a chance to be detrimental to the Warriors season this year.
I thought they did a wise thing by making him leave the team. But, the whole thing comes down to it wasn't a fight. It was a sucker punch. It was one guy getting hit with one punch and then being jumped on. So I don't know why we call it a fight. It was an assault as much as it was a fight. And, again, I have no idea how to explain that. I mean, most of the fights in basketball, usually everybody's kind of squaring off and throwing and flaring.
Right.
And within 20 seconds, it's broken up. But that was more like a dominant. I mean, Draymond, I thought his apology was really first class. But it's still something they're going to have to work out. And I'm not a big believer that words work it out as much as actions. And so because of that, I think it might take some time.
And, Coach, do you have any reference point? Have you seen anything like that happen with one of your teams in all the years that you coach?
Oh, there are times in training camp, I like fights. In training camp, when I wanted to get something going, I like guys getting into the elbow asshole game.
Right.
And I would say most training camps I was in, there was a fight or two. But it was both guys fighting. That was more of a dominant, personality dominating and trash talking and turning into a sucker punch.
Right.
And I love Draymond. I hope Draymond figures it out. I hope Draymond gets what he wants. I think he's great for the league. I like how he talks his words. I think are words of wisdom. But this made me sad a little bit.
Right. Well, Coach, again, we talked about this like offline before, but this kind of goes back into the Denver Nuggets conversation in the Western Conference, because right now the Phoenix Suns, Coach, the Robert Sarver stuff, the stuff that happened with DeAndre Ayton saying he hadn't spoken to Coach Monty Williams the entire summer, the contract dispute that they were having, the Pacers offering him a deal, and the Suns matching. Jay Crowder once out of that situation. Then Chris Paul, seemingly aging and turning 37. So then you got the Phoenix Suns. Then you got the Golden State Warriors. Jaren Jackson Jr. for the Memphis Grizzlies won't be available till maybe December or January. And then the Dallas Mavericks are trying to put Christian Wood into the roster without Jalen Brunson. Coach, and then now the Timberwolves have a brand new player in Rudy Gobert next to Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. Now, it feels to me that the Western Conference is more wide open than it's been in years, and especially if you add the LA Clippers in here, where they're like, hey, John Wall, come revitalize your career here. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, stay healthy and make it work with the rest of this roster. Are you of the mindset that the Western Conference for the Denver Nuggets especially could be more winnable than it's been in previous years?
It's all summer talk right now. It's to be determined. I love anybody. I mean, I want Denver to win it all. I want what the Avalanche did for the Nuggets. And that would be a great celebration here in Denver. I want to see some games. Maybe 10, maybe 20 games into the season, I'll feel better with what I'm going to say. Because you bring up all the good points. I think Dallas is going to be pretty good. You know, was Brunson important? Yeah, he was. He's showing he's a pretty good player. But I think he is replaceable. And I like Dallas. I like Memphis. I like Denver. But I like the idea that Utah's not going to be very good. Looks like San Antonio's in the lottery. Maybe the Lakers, if Anthony Davis plays like he played the last couple of years, they're not going to be very good. But they're all talented. All the rosters have talent, as does Denver. Denver has a lot of talent, but so do the Clippers. So does Golden State. So does Dallas. So does Memphis. Minneapolis. It's an interesting experiment. And, one of the great coming players plays in Minneapolis. Anthony Edwards is really, really, really good. And my favorite right now probably is John Morant. I mean, Jokic is my favorite. Right. But he's boring. He's so damn boring. But John Morant and Anthony Edwards, they're legit.
Right. So, Coach, when you look at the Denver roster, when I look at it, I see Nikola Jokic, I see Jamal Murray, I see Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown, Bones Highland, and Aaron Gordon. Those would be the top 8 players that I see. If I evaluate them, plus coaching, Coach, I've been relatively high on Coach Michael Malone for years. I think that he's been a solidified top 6 or 7 coach the last several years. I mean, he won more than anyone in the Western Conference over the last 4 seasons. He has battled through injuries time and time and time again. And again, people have the complaints about him, but he's done very well. He's been more successful than almost anyone, but he's never really gotten like Coach of the Year looks before. And I think that maybe this could be one of the years that he does get him. So I think the roster comparatively is good, but I do think that the defensive questions around it are legit because Nikola Jokic is not a good rim protector. He needs to grow. And then again, you're trying to get Kentavious, you're trying to get Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown. You're trying to get all of them on board to make the defense better. So for you, Coach, is your hesitation with the roster more that you don't know if the defensive pieces work, or maybe even from a Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon from a health standpoint, you don't know if Nikola Jokic is going to have the help that he needs to carry this team over the top?
Well, my hope is that I hope that Jamal Murray has an all-star year. Because I think Jokic wants someone else to be his Robin. He doesn't want to be Batman every night.
Right.
He wants to be Michael Jordan. He wants to give it to someone else. But the defensive challenge is if they start only one good – well, Gordon's a good defender. Pope has a history of being a good defender. I personally might start a Bruce Brown instead of Porter Jr. and bring Porter Jr. off the bench. And I just think that would give you more balance of your first team has good defense. Bones is not a great defender. I mean, Jamal was a decent defender, but not his forte. My whole thing comes down to is how you balance to where you're good offensively and good defensively all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you start on offense, you're probably not going to be great defensively. If it's Porter, Gordon, and the roster that everybody says is going to be. But I like Bruce Brown because he's tough.
Right.
He's physically, he looks like an angry man a little bit. And I think that's all good. I think the whole NBA is, the pendulum has swung back to being a little more tougher.
Right.
And I think we would all admit that Denver's more of a finesse team than a physical team.
Yeah, I think the thing is Denver is a very gritty team in that they don't believe that they're ever out. Like the way they play the last 3 or 4 years, and especially in the playoffs, like they never just lose series like because they quit or because they don't want to step up to the moment. Like last year, even the last 3 games of the Golden State series, they were all single-digit games and all winnable games. I mean, Jokic, averaged 35, 15, and 6 on 73% true shooting for the last 3 games. And, maybe if he had some more help, then the series turns out a little bit differently. They respond for some reason, like as things get tougher, but there's something about Denver where they haven't yet been able to go from being a team that's like, all right, we're going to respond when we need to, as opposed to we're going to put it on you at the very beginning of the game or the very beginning of the season, and we're going to keep our foot on you throughout the rest of the year. Meaning even defensively, they'll have moments where they'll just be like, all right, we're great, and then all of a sudden they'll fall back into being the 30th ranked defense in the NBA. So do you have any insight on what that might be, that maybe they'll be really, really, really good defensively for a while, or they'll even be a really dominant team for a while, but then for some reason they let up at some point?
Well, I think a lot of times in the NBA, what you fall into, what you're kind of defining, is when you play bad teams, it's easier to be a good defensive team. It's when you play really good teams or really good offensive teams, are you a good defensive team? So there are going to be a lot of nights when they look great against, a team that might have injuries, or a team that's playing a lot of young guys, a team that's lost a lot of games. And they're going to look like they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But will they look that way against the elite teams of the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen that very much here in Denver. Usually when Denver beats Golden State, or Denver beats Milwaukee, or Denver beats a Boston or a good team, it's usually because they're good offensively. The other thing is what I saw last year, which I thought was pretty good, because I think my teams kind of had this a little bit. I thought they were a pretty good fourth quarter defensive team last year.
Yeah.
And a lot of regular season NBA comes down to how you play in the fourth quarter. And if they can become a really good second half defensive team, that makes more sense to me than saying they're going to become a great defensive team.
Mm.
I don't think they're going to become a great defensive team. I think hopefully they're going to be better, and they're going to gain confidence in winning those games and winning some games with playing defense.
Yeah, Coach, I actually really love that. And the statistics would actually support that in the fourth quarter in the playoffs is when they actually get much better defensively. They did that in the Clippers series. They did that in the Utah series. Again, even last year versus the Warriors, they tend it's just as the moment gets tighter. And you know what's funny? Jamal Murray, coach, actually did an interview with Taylor Brooks for Bleacher Report recently. And he said that he feels like he plays better when things get tighter and there's more pressure because he knows he has to get it done. And I think that's kind of the DNA of the team right now. That's just kind of how they respond to things. So we'll see if that continues and if they get better down the stretch as the season goes along. But there's there's two more things I want to ask you. So, Coach, Nikola Jokic right now, he's the back-to-back MVP. Last year, he averaged 27, 14, and 8, carried him to 48 wins. He has his team around him. The dogs are back. He got Porter, got Murray, the rest of the roster. Coach, do you think that there is a scenario that Nikola Jokic is able to win a third straight MVP this season?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't want him to win the MVP. I want someone else to come in and make him, instead of being the only stud, I want him to get some rest, where the personality will evolve into a bigger foundation of success. Of course, that probably falls on Murray and some of our additions. You know, I think Pope and Brown are going to be two guys I'm going to be really interested in. You know, Bones, I love him. I love his abilities. But I still think you got to have a rope on his neck a little bit. I don't think you got to let him. You can let him totally go right now. I think you got to let him find, when he's playing well, play him more. But when he's playing poorly, bring him out and talk to him and coach him up about, we not only need you to be a really good player, we need you to be a pedigree winning the playoff player. Mm. And that growth, I think, you know, I believe it takes time. So how do we speed that growth up? Playing with Jokic helps that, because Jokic plays playoff basketball every night. And so I'm not sure I really want Jokic to win the MVP.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't think the NBA wants him to win the MVP. There's too many other guys out there that they're going to want to put the spotlight on. And Jokic doesn't like the spotlight. He doesn't want the spotlight.
Right. All right, Coach. So final question, and this one has nothing to do with current NBA players and or has to do with the Denver Nuggets. But, Coach, I'm not sure if you've seen Victor Wembanyama. He just played in the Summer League, or not Summer League. He just played against the G League and all that. And there has been a lot of conversations about him. And people have been coming out, Coach, saying, not me, I didn't say this. So, again, I didn't say this, but people have been coming out saying he might be the best basketball prospect that we've seen, period. People even have him in front of LeBron James. So, Coach, what are your initial impressions on what you've seen from Victor Wembanyama? And for you, do you think that he has a comp that you've seen through the course of NBA history?
Really, really good. I can't deny he's in that class of Kobe and LeBron and a little bit of Shaq. I mean, they're Ralph Sampson. Ralph Sampson was that way when he was in college, where you knew how good he was going to be. Like when I first saw Magic, my scouting report on Magic, I said no brainer. He's going to be a hell of a player. You don't have to say anything else. So there were guys like that that come along. But the best ever, I mean, it's the soul. I mean, the best ever has got to win championships. I worry about, is the game going to help him win a championship, or is the game going to continue to go away from the big man? I know he plays on the perimeter, and I know he's good out there. But there's some things about big guys that they take time to unfold, and I'm not going to give him the best ever. I mean, to me, it was LeBron. When I saw LeBron play in high school, I said, wow. Kobe was close. You know, Magic was close. Bird was boring, but really good. But no one I thought Bird was going to be one of the top 10 ever. I don't think many people said that. So, again, it's all speculation, summer talk, you know, potential versus performance.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a hell of a year. I mean, there's going to be a lot of storylines that are going to be developed. I'm praying that somewhere along the way we get expansion. Or get expansion for this team here. We need that one. But I'm anxious to get started, because what they're doing now with, it seems like football doesn't play exhibition games. And I think basketball is drawn back from really playing really good the exhibition games have been kind of sloppy.
Well, Coach, I know that LeBron James was advocating that he wants to be one of the first player owner, and he wants to be an owner for a Las Vegas team. And I know that they're also talking about putting a team back in Seattle. So maybe in the next few years, we get 2 more NBA franchises again. I know Seattle deserves to have a basketball team. They love the Sonics, and so obviously we'll see what happens from there. But Coach, here's the good news, Coach. This is only episode 1. We got plenty of conversations for the year.
We didn't even wrestle today. Damn. I thought you would bring a good argument to shoot along with you.
Well, look, Coach, I got the analytics. I got the numbers. I think that Jokic could win a 3rd straight MVP. I think that the Denver Nuggets have the roster to win an NBA championship if they're healthy this year. So trust me, we're going to have a lot to argue about as the year goes on.
Well, I think Denver's in the top 10 in the NBA. I mean, they have talent. But how is that talent going to come together? Are they going to figure out their weaknesses? Are their injuries not going to be a problem? They're just beginning a marathon race. It's a long year. It's going to be fun to be on the ride.
Right. Well, y'all, make sure y'all hit the subscribe button. If you like what you see, share. Truth in Basketball with Coach Karl and Swipa. We're going to be here. Great content all year. You're going to be able to talk about the Denver Nuggets, the NBA, players coming into the league. We're going to have so much to talk about. You're going to get a chance to hear from a Hall of Fame coach and Coach George Karl, and obviously your boy Swipa Cam, y'all. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we will see y'all soon. Let's go.